This the metabolo. It's the metabolo security mess when the rhyme when it gets concrete. I love the dry crunch of shattered asbestos ties of
yeah. 3:07 a.m. deep inside the crumbling 13-story concrete monolith of building 93 at the abandoned Kings Park Psychiatric Center. Isolated on the desolate edges of Long Island. Miles of dead corridors, rusted hydrotherapy tubs, and shattered day rooms stretching into the pitch black. The heavy smell of damp dust, stale medicine, decomposing timber, and cold Atlantic air. Keep that distorted beast, reorg and loop lock tight in the track layout. No mainstream hooks, no commercial shortcuts, strictly the raw weight of the institutional ghost. Listen close. Stepping through the wall where the shadows intersect, leaving no trace of the digital disrespect. I split the organ loop till the drawbars start to grind, forging a bleak blueprint for the uncompromised mind. The heavy bass line hits like a shock therapy joke, operating in the dark like a loose industrial boat. The wooden snare cracks like a window frame breaking, exposing the raw truth that the industry is faking. We skip the radio schemes and the media applause. We just decode the patterns within the structural flaws. Just a midnight phantom decoding the ancient script, watching how the timeline of the century got flipped. Distorted organ chords bleeding through the empty ward, low and bass lines tracking where the shadows fall hard. We keep the underground sacred through the structural cracks, uncut tape hiss, delivering the facts. Yeah, a diss the roads accent echoes on a secondary track. Got a vault full of heat that the majors couldn't pack. Analytical focus, observing how the system decays, piercing straight through the artificial graphic displays. We chop the minor progression till the tape begins to drag, planting the raw standard like a midnight rebel flag. The drum sample of knots with that vintage garage smoke, delivering the exact rhythm that the critics never spoke. Keep the heavy leather zipped against the institution chill, tracking the heavy cadence till the master tape is still. No cinematic compromises, no diluted pop sound, just the weight of the pavement running deep underground. Distorted organ chords bleeding through the empty ward, low and bass lines tracking where the shadows fall hard. We keep the underground sacred through the structural cracks, uncut tape hiss, delivering the fact. Now the real hits the aluminum flange on the final spin, but the narrative survives before the daylight creeps in. We leave the raw doctrine etched deep in the lead paint, long after the system labels the poet a saint. The kick drum is thumping like a pulse in a stone, a cold testament to the words delivered alone. The signal slowly fades into the static of the grid, a grim artifact of the secrets that the architecture hid. Underground frequency remains absolute and strict. The after hours theory is the zone we predict. We exit the perimeter and vanish in the fraud. Yeah, asylum logic. Let the static bleed out. Heavy analog pressure. After hours theory. We out. 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 Let the static bleed out. The distant boom of heavy Atlantic surf crashing against subterranean concrete barriers, followed by the dry. Whistling here, insulated on the windswept edge of the Rockaway Peninsula, Queens. Massive. Decaying World War II fortifications buried beneath shifting sand dunes. Empty shell magazines stretching into the damp dark. The heavy smell of salt, rot, dead seaweed, oxidized steel, and old gunpowder residue. Keep that Raspencello sequence looping raw on the master track. No commercial edits, no radio-friendly formulas, strictly uncompressed tape friction from the edge of the Atlantic shelf lip. Stepping through the gum mounts where the rebar bleeds, scattering the syllables like windblown seeds. I chop the cello sequence till the lower notes distort, leaving heavy evidence inside this coastal fort. The low frequency hums through the bunker floor, while the high tide rises past the blast-proof door. The snare snaps sharp like a frozen tripwire string, isolating every single sentence that I bring. We ignore the media channels and the radio chart. We just isolate the specimen and tear it apart. Just an unlisted name, moving silent through the dunes, spitting raw definitions over dark jazz tunes. Parker cellos frame wrinkling through the concrete block, thick drum patterns hitting while the ocean waves shock. We keep the frequency pure on the edge of the coast, uncompressed acetate acetate, leaving a permanent. Yeah, faint road shine floats on a secondary deck. Got a notebook full of math from a total system wreck. Strict analytical view, observing the machine, refusing to alter the transmission for their screen. We split the minor interval until the ribbon starts to weave, leaving nothing but the absolute truth for you to achieve. The drum engine bangs with that unquantized swing, the exact type of raw material the pioneers bring. Keep the field jacket button to the throat for the chill, measuring the density until the master tape is still. No synthetic polish or diluted sound design, just the natural way to the boundary line. Marfello strings echoing through the concrete block. Thick drum patterns hitting while the ocean wave shot. We keep the frequency pure on the edge of the coast. Uncompressed acetate, leaving a permanent post. Marfello strings echoing through the concrete block. Thick drum patterns hitting while the ocean wave shot. We keep the frequency pure on the edge of the coast. Uncompressed acetate, leaving a permanent. Now the oxide is scraping on the final metal post, but the transmission is locked from coast to coast. We leave the calculations buried deep in the sand, long after the tide reclaims the stretch of land. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy surf break, a solid monument for the statements that we make. The erasement slowly fades into the morning fog bank, a grim registration on a blank memory tank. Coastal frequency stays permanent, the vision is exact. The Atlantic protocol is an unyielding fact. We step out of the bunker and we disappear in the gray. Yeah. Yeah. Battery logic. Let the vinyl static play out. Saturated tape friction. The Atlantic protocol. We out. We out. We out. We out. The sharp mechanical click of a tape deck stopping, followed by pure, heavy silence.
The distant, metallic screech of a heavy iron ward gate swinging on a rusted spindle, followed by the dry, powdery crunch of echo files, shattered window glass under a thick rubber sole, a dusty, low-pass, filtered jazz, electric loop creeps from the shadows. Plucking a slow, weeping minor blues phrase, drenched in a vintage tape echo and heavy spring reverb. It is layered with a faint, shivering acknowledged sensei sine wave humming, a deep lumber in the quincente's lag. Without a single second of delay, the 92 BPM drum break drops. The kick hits sub-heavy, raw and deeply saturated. The snare snaps with a dry wooden paper thin thud over a continuous layer of thick lacquer surface noise. A gritty low-tone voice speaks instantly.
3:05 a.m. deep inside the cavernous, rotting multi-story maze of building 25 at the abandoned Creedmoor Psychiatric Center, hidden in the eastern reaches of Queens Village. Thousands of abandoned institutional rooms stretching into the midnight blackness, peeling lip paint hanging like sheets of parchment from the ceilings. Rusted iron gurneys left in the hydrotherapy halls, the heavy smell of damp masonry, old mattress stuff and wild ivy and cold night fog. Lock that weeping jazz guitar loop straight onto the master track reel. No industry gimmicks, no polished radial templates, strictly raw psychological friction from the forgotten edge of the borough. Listen close, navigating through the asylum wards where the plaster bleeds, etching raw definitions where the concrete cracks and recedes. I slice the guitar sequence till the echo trails distorted, forging a sovereign manuscript inside this open net chord. The low frequency bass line vibrates through the brick foundation while the city across the highway sinks into commercial stagnation. The snare drops hard like a heavy steel fire door, locking, slicing straight through the nonsense that the mainstream is hawking. We don't fill out the allocations or request a corporate praise, we just document the architecture as the century decays. Just a midnight shadow tracking ink across the ruined floor, leaving an unlisted signature behind the security door.
Honging guitar notes echoing through the empty day room, big drum configurations hitting through the midnight gloom. We keep the frequency uncompressed behind the brick wall, uncut, lack of dust, answering the independent call. Independent call.
Yeah, the shivering sim hovers on the parallel track matrix, isolating honest dialogue from the algorithmic theatric, strict operational focus, watching how the structure splits, slicing through the fabric before the power station quits. We chop the minor interval until the playback rhythm stutters, delivering the code definition straight to the outcasts and gutters. The vintage sample of punches with that authentic garagey, the exact type of winner blueprint that the radio can't repeat. Keep the canvas utility code button tight for the cold draft, watching how the corporate entity tries to commercialize the craft until the oxide strip runs complete. completely off the aluminum wheel. We maintain a raw execution known as independent real.
Walking guitar notes echoing through the empty day room. Big drum configurations hitting through the midnight gloom. We keep the frequency uncompressed behind the brick wall. Uncut, lack of dust, answering the independent call.
Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the lexicon remains intact for the elements to burn. We leave the coordinates stamped deep in the rusted iron beam. Long after the metropolis wakes up from his digital dream, the kick drum is thumping like a heavy industrial piston stroke, a solid monument to the unfiltered truths that we spoke. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the morning valley mist, the cold testament to the depth that the charts never list. Institutional energy stays permanent, the focus is defined. The Cremo Codex is the only signal left behind. We step through the broken window and vanish in the trees. Yeah, asylum logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Palming a tongue note to the Cremo Codex. Grid isolated. We out. We out. We out. The sharp echo click of an ancient industrial ceramic fuse being pulled, followed by the steady grip. By the steady grip. By the steady grip. Yeah. 3:22 a.m. standing inside the cavernous pitch black generator hall of the abandoned Long Island City Power Station, right on the edge of Newtown Creek. 4 giant brick smokestacks piercing the midnight sky like hollow pillars, rusted iron walkways hanging suspended over empty turbine pits. The heavy smell of old ozone, coal dust, stagnant canal water, and damp transformer oil. Lock that breathy jazz clarinet loop straight on the master track sequence. No industry shortcuts, no commercial packaging, strictly raw mechanical current from the dead grid of the borough. Listen close. Navigating through the turbine pits where the copper bleeds, documenting the friction that the modern matrix breeds. I split the clarinet loop to the earwig notes fracture, weaving a dense tapestry that the charts can manufacture. The low frequent velocity bass vibrates through the brick wall, while the ghost of the industrial age enter the call. The snare snaps crisp like a high voltage line snapping loose, leaving an indelible mark that no labels can reduce. We don't buy the digital real estate or the fake metrics, we just chart the topography through the broken electrics. Just a midnight shadow stepping over the discarded iron gears, pouring raw ink through the architecture of the forgotten years. Haunting clarinet phrases drifting through the dead switchboard, heavy drum arrangements cutting like a cold iron sword. We keep the underground pulsing through the circuit decay, pure analog weight driving all the static away. Yeah, the road staccato lingers on the secondary stem matrix, isolating honest dialogue from the algorithmic theatrics. Strict operational focus, observing how the system cracks, refusing to dilute the transmission on these independent tracks. We slice the minor cadence to the playback head begins to flutter, feeding raw calculations directly to the outcast in the gutter. The drum sampler punches with that uncompressed garage heat, the exact type of winter legend the radio can't repeat. Keep the canvas utility coat button tight for the cold draft, watching how the corporate entity tries to commercialize the craft until the oxide scrapes the edge of the guidepost. We hold up a rent secure like an unyielding ghost. Yeah. It's haunting clarinet phrases drifting through the dead switchboard, heavy drum arrangements cutting like a cold iron sword. We keep the underground pulsing through the circuit decay, pure analog weight driving all the static away. Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the lexicon remains intact for the elements to burn. We leave the coordinates stamped deep in a rusted iron beam, long after the metropolis wakes up from his digital dream. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy hydraulic piston crank, a rugged monument we're recorded on a completely blank bank. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the morning fog bank kiss, a cold testament to the format that the commercial channels miss. Generates the energy, stays permanent, the syntax is tight, the foundry cases dominates the remainder of the night. We scale the corrugated boundary and we dissolve in the gray. Yeah. The charm, the charm, the charm, the charm, the charm, echoic of the names in industrial ceramic, ceramic, because sharp branches. The sharp echoic of an ancient industrial ceramic. Yeah. Station logic. Let the final static bleed out. The foundry basis. Grid shut down.
Thick dripping of condensation falling from a corroded steel roof, truss into a pool of stagnant, iridescent chemical sludge below. Mix of a distant low-frequency Guyana Gowanus expressway of dusty. Low-pass filtered chromatic jazz harmonica loop wails out from the dark, breathing and weeping. Bent minor phrase that shivers within a log tape, wow and flutter. It is layered with a faint shiver and vintage wallets are electrocate on a heavy dragon double bass line. Without a single second of delay, the 94 BPM drum break drops. The kick hits dry, boxy and heavily compressed. The snare snaps with a sharp high mid-bite and crack over a continuous layer of vintage acetate surface noise. A gritty low-tone voice speaks instantly.
4:26 a.m. deep inside the hollow monolithic brick shell of the abandoned Brooklyn Rapid Transit BRT. Powerhouse looming over the black waters of the Gowanus Canal. Massive concrete vertebrae stripped of their turbines. Towering arch windows patched with rusted corrugated 10 decades of legendary street art fading under layers of industrial soot. The heavy smell of coal tar, old battery acid, stagnant canal silt and damp masonry. Keep that haunting chromatic harmonica loop locked straight into the mix. Architecture, no commercial gloss, no generic trap loops. Strictly raw magnetic friction from the forgotten industrial core of Brooklyn. Listen close. Navigating through the oil slick sumps where the iron bleeds. Documenting the cold fallout the modern culture breeds. I segment the harmonica phrase until the reed notes buckle. Leaving raw carbon prints on the microphone knuckle. The low double bass is dragging through the subterranean silt. While the tractor sex the empire that the syndicates built. The snare snaps vicious like an old circuit breaker flip. Slicing through the heavy silence of the unedited strip. We don't solicit the attention of the digital brokers. We just drop the heavyweight for the midnight smokers. Just a faceless operator tracking lines in the damp air, exposing the skeletal system that the labels wouldn't dare. The nocturnal inventory through the turbine floor. Raw drum machinery knocking outside the iron door. We keep the frequency unplasticized behind the brick wall. Uncut lacquer dust answering the inner city call. Yeah, the shivering wallets of accent hovers on a parallel track out of dossier. Your raw pressure that the editors can't track. Strict structural calculus tracking how the pavement divides. Piercing straight through the illusions where the consensus resides. We chop the minor interval until the playback head stutters. Delivering the rawest catalog directly to the gutters. The vintage drum machine thumps with that unquantized weight. The exact type of winner broadcast at the radios. Hey, keep the heavy utility parker zip high for the toxic breeze. Watching how the corporate engine makes the independent freeze until the oxide ribbon runs completely off the brass wheel. We maintain a raw execution on this independent reel. The nocturnal inventory through the turbine floor. Drum machinery knocking outside the iron door. We keep the frequency unplasticized behind the brick walls. Uncut lacquer dust answering the inner city calls. Now the tape is scraping aluminum on the final guide pin, but the manuscript survives before the early shift crawls in. We lead a philosophy engraved deep in the sustained brick. Long after the digital algorithm stop their frantic click. The kick drum is stumping like an industrial power driver stroke. A solid monument to the unfiltered truths that we spoke. The audio slowly submerges into the morning traffic. A cold documentation of where the actual poetry comes from. Subterranean energy remains absolute and strict. The obsidian chapter is the only zone we predict. We climb through the broken brickwork and vanish in the mess. Yeah. Powerhouse logic. Let the acetate static bleed out. The obsidian chapter. Grid isolated. We out. Yeah. And now it's blown up wolf and sewing through the turbine floor.
Yeah. Heavy hollow rattling of a massive iron hanger bay door buckled by coastal gales. Part around the abandoned Floyd Bennett field on the windy coast of South Brooklyn. Massive, decaying aviation sheds where the first transatlantic pilots tuned their engines. Dead runways overgrown with beach grass stretching toward Jamaica Bay. The stinging smell of aviation grease, salt crust, rusted hydraulic fluid and cold ocean fog. Keep that gravity baritone sax sequence looping raw on a massive grill. No synthesized sheen, no commercial playlist formulas, strictly uncut mechanical pressure from the cradle of flight. Listen close, listen close.
Stepping past the aluminum ribs where the engines die, recording every variable with the Atlantic wind outside. I fracture the saxophone loop until the reeds begin to distort, constructing an unlisted manual within its coastal court. The sub-frequencies hum through the crack runway tar, while the navigation lights flicker weak from afar. The snare drum drops like an old hydraulic valve giving way, slicing straight through the quiet at the break of day. We bypass the media brokers and the synthetic applause. We just catalog the friction within the systemic flaws. Just a nocturnal writer leaving carbon on the metal frame, erasing the digital markers that are tied to a generic name. Low barrel top saxophone notes echoing down the runway floor. Heavy drum arrangements hitting outside the hangar door. We keep the signal tracking through the oxidized sheet metal. Raw analog friction, waiting for the dust to settle. Waiting for the dust to settle. Raw analog friction, waiting for the dust to settle. Waiting for the dust to settle. Raw analog friction, waiting for the dust to settle. Yeah, the tremolo rolls hovers on a parallel track matrix, isolating honest dialogue from their promotion theatrics. Strict operational focus, keeping the audio blueprint clean, refusing to slice the perspective for their digital screen. We chop the minor chord, change it till the magnetic tape flutters, providing an authentic frequency for the outcasts and the gutters. The drum sampler punches with that uncompressed garage heat, exact type of winter catalog that the charts can't repeat. Keep the flight jacket fast and tight against the bay moisture, treating the entire metropolis like a cold closed oyster until the dark oxide flakes off the edge of the plastic band. We hold a position secure in a stretch of abandoned land. Low battle saxophone notes echoing down the runway floor. Heavy drum arrangements hitting outside the hangar door. We keep the signal tracking through the oxidized sheet metal. Raw analog friction, waiting for the dust to settle. Raw battle saxophone notes echoing down the runway floor. Heavy drum arrangements hitting outside the hangar door. We keep the signal tracking through the oxidized sheet metal. Raw analog friction, waiting for the dust to settle. Now the tape guide is scratching on the final few feet of string, but the architecture remains unaffected by what the seasons bring. We lead a raw coordinate stamped deep in the cockpit rust. Long after that commercial industry dissolves in the lime and dust, the kick drum is thumping like a twin propeller starter crank. A rugged monument recorded on a blank financial ledger bank. The audio slowly submerges into the early morning radio hum, a cold documentation of where the actual narrative come from. Aviation energy stays permanent, the target is locked and tight. The albatross formula dominates the remainder of the night. We secure the perimeter latch and we vanish in the gray. Yeah. Hang a logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Raw analog friction. The albatross formula. We out. The sharp mechanical click of a tape deck stopping, followed by pure silence. The high-pitched metallic groaning of rusted iron ship hulls scraping against each other in the shifting tide, followed by the steady heavy lapping polluting marsh water. The dusty low-pass filter jazz Ogo loop crawls out from the blackness, spinning an eerie, mournful minor phrase. Big 3:49 a.m. Standing on a muddy, marshy edge of the Arthur Kill Boat graveyard on the industrial outer rim of Staten Island. Dozens of decomposing 20th century tugboats, historic ferries and creaking cargo barges left to rot in the black water. Their ribs exposed like skeletal whales under the stars. The heavy smell of salt crust, diesel residue, decaying oak and cold coastal sulfur. Keep the dusty oboe loop running raw on the layout. No radio shortcuts, no polished templates, strictly uncut. Analog pressure from the cemetery of the Atlantic fleet. Listen close. Trudging through the marshland where the iron holes rot, etching permanent syllables in this forgotten spot. I chop the oboe sequence till the wooden reed snaps, drafting out a blueprint that eludes their radar maps. The low frequency hums through the saltwater corrosion, while the narrative triggers an internal explosion. The snare drops hard like a heavy mooring line, breaking through the silence of the industry design. We don't buy the metrics or the algorithmic praise, we just witness how the climate of the century decays. Just an isolated witness tracking rust on a crane, pouring raw ink directly through the skeletal remains. Eerie oboe melodies drifting past the broken deck, thick bass lines pounding while the wooden holes wreck. We keep the frequency heavy through the tidal debris, uncompressed acetate operating wild and free. Yeah,
Yeah, the mellotron chord hovers on a secondary lane. Got a catalog of friction running deep inside the brain. Cold mechanical logic dissecting every frame, refusing to participate in their commercial game. We segment the minor scale till the ribbon begins to hiss, delivering the cold doctrine that the pop charts miss. The drum machine is knocking with an unquantized swing, the exact type of project where the shadow writers sing. Keep the heavy canvas collar turned against the coastal frost, calculating profits from the things the city lost. Until the oxide flakes from the edge of the strip, we preserve the raw thesis in its absolute grip. Irreoable melodies drifting past the broken deck, thick bass lines pounding while the wooden holes wreck. We keep the frequency heavy through the tidal debris, uncompressed S state operating wild and free. Wild and free, 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 wild and free. Yeah. Now the plastic reel is turning on its very last revolution, leaving behind a heavy uncut audio solution. We leave the mathematical equations written in the grease, long after the tides bring the final absolute peace. The kick drum is thumping like a distant diesel piston stroke, a solid monument to the heavy words we spoke. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the morning sea fog, a grim artifact recorded in the captain's log. Coastal energy stays permanent, the focus is defined. The iron current is the only thing we leave behind. We step back onto the gravel and we vanish from the shore. Yeah. Graveyard logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Uncut analog pressure. The iron current. We out. We out. We out. We out. We out. The distant low frequency electrical hum. Motherfuckers in the world, man. The distant low freak, man. You could diss a low close. All night until we back rap. Aerosol tag. It's 31 a.m. deep inside the pitch black concrete cavern over the band of Freedom Tunnel. Running right beneath Riverside Park on Manhattan's Upper West Side. Massive retaining walls covered in decades of legendary fading aerosol murals, active steel tracks humming in the dark. The heavy smell of damp soot, old kerosene, brake dust and wet concrete mold. Keep that fractured piano loop locked tight in the track layout. No commercial edits, no industry compromising, strictly raw tape dynamics from the underbelly of the West Side. Listen close. Moving through the transit vault, stepping on the gravel beds, writing verses underneath the city where the static spreads. I split the piano loop until the ivory notes fracture, capturing a raw tint that the labels cannot manufacture. The low end frequencies rattle through the tie plates, while the third rail watches how the rhythm calculates. The snare hits crisp like a spray can nozzle pop, delivering the standard that the radios will never drop. We don't buy the promote some gimmicks or the fake trends. We just draft the layout where the actual marrow ends. Just a midnight shadow leaving ink upon the brickwork, navigating areas where the silent rail spikes lurk. Piano keys echoing down the concrete hall, heavy drum patterns driving while the shadows crawl. We keep the bass line locked beneath the street level grid, raw tape dynamics revealing what the darkness hid. Yeah, a muffled horn accent drifts on the secondary track. Got a notebook full of friction that the editors will slash. Strict observation, seeing how the corporate medium warps, cutting through the optical illusions of the pop chords. We slice the minor cadence till the real gives a stutter, feeding raw thoughts straight to the dwellers of the gutter. The drum engine thumbs with that uncompressed dirt, the precise type of underground language they wanna hurt. Keep the denim jacket button close against the damn breeze, watching how the industry machine makes the weak freeze until the magnetic ribbon hits the end of the spool. We preserve the raw thesis sharp as a surgical tool.
Digital piano keys echoing down the concrete hall, heavy drum patterns driving while the shadows crawl.
We keep the bass line locked beneath the street level grid, raw tape
Dynamics revealing what the darkness hid.
Now the oxide is scraping on a final guidepost, but the syllable survives like an undefeated ghost. We leave the signature scratched into the damp rust long after the system turns the architecture into lime and dust. The kick drum is thumping like an industrial exhaust fan, a heavy monument built by the forgotten man. The mix slowly sinks into the ventilation hiss, a cold testament to the format that the charts miss. Aerosol energy stays permanent, the focus is pure. The midnight blueprint is the only thing that'll endure. We climb the emergency ladder and we exit into the night. Yeah.
Digital piano keys echoing down the concrete hall, a heavy drum patterns driving while the shadows crawl.
We keep the bass line locked beneath the street level grid, raw tape down
time aim is revealing what the darkness hid.
Eternal logic, let the vinyl static bleed out.
Broad day animates.
Midnight blueprint. We out. We out. We out. Midnight blueprint. We out.
Terrific. Hollow slapping of the East River's love. 2:47 a.m. inside the collapse and ivy-covered ruins of the abandoned riverside. Hospital on North Brother Island, marooned in the treacherous currents between the Bronx and Rikers Island. The dark legendary quarantine wards where the city isolated its contagious ghost, rotting wooden floorboards sinking into the cellar mud. The heavy smell of damp river moss, sulfurous salt air, ancient formaldehyde and decaying mortar. Keep that breathless jazz flute loop locked tight in the primary sequence. No industry formulas, no artificial streaming bait. Strictly raw quarantine pressure from the forgotten island grid. Listen close. Listen close. Listen close. Trudging through the war where the contagion spread, carving on the syllables where the pavement is dead. I slice the flute loop till the silver keys rattle, preparing the mind for the independent battle. The low fuzz bass is shaking through the brick foundation while the city crossed the water faces mental stagnation. The snare hits sharp like a quarantine gate, locking, slicing through the nonsense that the mainstream is hawking. We don't trade the marrow for the corporate budget lines, we just track the truth within these localized designs. Just a midnight ghost dodging the patrol boat glare, leaving permanent stains on the contaminated stair. Breathy flute melodies cutting through the overgrown hall, thick bass dynamics driving while the brickwork falls. We keep the broadcast a link from the mainland wide, pure lack of dust fueling the internal fire. Yeah. The distorted clavinet stab echoes on a parallel track. Got a vault full of friction that the editors were back. Analytical perspective watching how the narrative warps. Walking through the shadows of the old medical corps. We chop the minor interval until the ribbon starts to slide. Delivering the raw doctrine that they try to hide. The vintage drum machine thumps with that uncompressed smoke. The exact type of winter ledger that the radio broke. Keep the heavy canvas collar turned against the river breeze. Watching how the commercial market makes the artist freeze until the magnetic ribbon runs completely off the core. We maintain the raw standard on this isolated shore. Breathy flute melodies cutting through the overgrown hall, thick bass dynamics driving while the brickwork falls. We keep the broadcast a link from the mainland wide, pure lack of dust fueling the internal fire. Breathy flute melody, breathy flute melodies cutting through the overgrown hall, thick bass dynamics driving while the brickwork falls. We keep the broadcast a link from the mainland wide, pure lack of dust fueling the internal fire. Now the oxide is flaking on a final real exchange, but the independent manuscript is out of their range. We leave the coordinates engraved deep in the wall mold, long after the superficial metrics grow completely cold. The kick drum is thumping like a distant tugboat engine stroke, a solid testament to the unfiltered words that we spoke. The arrangement slowly sinks into the morning fog. Bank kiss, a cold reminder of the depth that the commercial channels miss. Isolation energy stays permanent, the target is defined. A contagion chapter is the only broadcast left behind. We launch the rubber zodiac and vanish in the gray. Breathy flute melodies cutting through the overgrown hall. Yeah, island logic. The vinyl static lead out. The contagion chapter. A quarantine, yeah. Island logic. Breathy flute melodies cutting through the overgrown hall. The eerie hollow whistling of a midnight wind. We're midnight word. We're midnight word. But eating all the wizard of the midnight blood.
3:37 a.m. standing beneath the tower. Retro-futuristic skeleton of the abandoned New York State Pavilion. In Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, Queens. Massive, decaying yellow steel pillars shooting into the midnight fog. Weeds bursting through the rotted, multicolored terrazzo map of New York State on the ground below. The 3 rusted observation towers cutting like concrete mushrooms into the dark sky.
The heavy smell of damp moss, oxidized paint, old industrial grease, and marshy park air. Keep that muffled, rather rogue sequence looping raw on the master track. No radio hooks, no algorithmic formulas, strictly uncut structural pressure from the architectural ghost of the World's Fair. Listen close.
Tracing geometric lines where the yellow metal splits, isolating frequencies before the power circuit quits. I slice the tower slow loop so the mallet strikes the store, forging an anonymous script inside this open air court. The low end acoustic bass is vibrating through the soil while the night prowlers disconnect from the consumer coil. The wooden snare drops like a structural support beam breaking, exposing the fragile illusions that the mainstream is making. We don't buy the digital metrics or the temporary praise. We just document the architecture as the century decays. Just a midnight phantom leaving footprints on the rotting map, escaping the confinement of the modern cultural trap. Listen, crows.
Haunted hundreds of keys echoing through the empty space. Heavy drum sequence hitting with a cold, unquantized pace. We keep the bass line locked beneath the skeletal frame. Pure analog friction, refusing to play the commercial game.
Yeah, the bass clearing it lingers on a secondary channel bank, extracting heavy syllables from a rusted oil tank. Analytical perspective, keeping the perimeter secure, ensuring that the final audio remains completely pure. We chop the minor chord progression till the tape begins to drag, hoisting the raw standard like an unlabeled black flag. The vintage sampler knocks with that uncompressed grit, the exact type of winner project that the radio program split. Keep the heavy denim collar turned against the midnight draft, watching how the corporate mechanism manipulates the craft until the magnetic ribbon hits the end of the guidepost. We preserve the raw thesis like an undefeated ghost.
Party on the low keys, freeze, heavy drum sequence hitting with a cold, unquantized pace. We keep the bass line locked beneath the skeletal frame. Pure analog friction, refusing to play the commercial game. Party on the low keys, freeze, heavy drum sequence hitting with a cold, unquantized pace. We keep the bass line locked beneath the skeletal frame. Pure analog friction, refusing to play the commercial game.
Now the oxide is scraping on the final aluminum flames, but the syllable survives and there's nothing left to change. We leave the mathematics written deep in the scaling rust, long after the empire turns the architecture into lime and dust. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy industrial compressor, a permanent monument to the words of the enlisted professor. The arrangement slowly sinks into the morning bird calls, leaving nothing but echoes bouncing off the concrete walls. Retro-futuristic energy, the blueprint is defined. The phantom ledger is the only broadcast left behind. We scale a chain link barrier and vanish in the mist. Yeah. Pavilion logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Crystalline resonance. Phantom ledger. We out. Get out of what's enough on the night one. On the night one. On the night one. The sharp hollow rattle of a rusted iron dumbwaiter cable scraping inside a dark shaft, followed by the dry crunch of shattered laboratory glass and petrified leather bindings. On the bindings of the East River, skeletal Gothic revival arches swallowed alive by invasive ivy. Hollow pointed windows framing the blinding neon skyline of Midtown Manhattan across the Blackwater. The heavy smell of damp moss, decomposing limestone, and cold river currents. Keep that dusty bassoon loop locked tight into the track layout. No generic industry patterns, no recycled verses. Strictly the raw texture of the isolation ward. Listen close.
Listen close.
Walking through the Gothic ruins where the masonry breaks, spitting cold obsidian lines over the heavy heartaches. I chop the bassim loop till the reed frequency warps, a grim cinematic layout for the city's old ghost. The deep bass line is rumbling low in the river bedrock, while the lookout track the ferry from a crumbling stone dock. The hard snare snaps like a heavy iron padlock, popping cold, preserving the unfiltered narrative that never was told. We don't seek the validation of a mainstream review, we just map the dark topography and slice it in two. Just a midnight phantom tracking footprints through the overgrown weeds, planting the anonymous counterculture seeds. Yeah. Thought-evoking notes echoing off the granite wall, deep bass lines dropping while the heavy shadows fall. We feed off the chair, pulsing through the structural rust, authentic continuity long before the gold turns to dust. Thought-evoking notes echoing off the granite wall, deep bass lines dropping dropping while the heavy shadows fall.
Keep the underground pulsing through the structural rust.
Authenticate continuity long before the gold turns to gold.
The taps of grog stabs drift heavy through the fractured subfloor. Got the chill of the East River creeping right through the door. Calculated isolation, keeping the vision untamed. Seeing straight through the tactics that the majors compile. We chop the minor scales till the audio signal distorts. Delivering the raw scriptures through the clinical chords. The drum machine is knocking with that authentic kiss. The exact type of winner project that the algorithms miss. Keep the heavy wool collar flipped against the island draft. Watching how the corporate syndicate exploits the craft until there's nothing left but static on a master tape spool. We deliver the grim reality, breaking every single rule.
Text spoken notes echoing off the granite wall. Deep baseline dropping while the heavy shadows fall. Freaky underground pulsing through the structural rust.
Authenticate continuity long before the gold turns to dust.
Haunting hooving notes echoing off the granite wall.
Deep baseline dropping while the heavy shadows fall.
Keep the underground pulsing through the structural rust.
Authenticate continuity long before the gold turns to
Now
dust.
the real hits the metal flange on the very last spin. But there's still a couple chapters before the daylight sets in. We leave the philosophy etched deep in the stone. Long after the whole metropolis is left completely alone. The kick drum is thumping like an industrial piston stroke. A rugged monument to the words that we spoke. The track slowly dissolves into the early morning hum. A cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Subterranean energy stays permanent, the focus is deep. The after hours theory dominates while the city's asleep. We step through the iron gate and we vanish in the gray. I cut motherfuckers out of many that made me.
Oscillation logic. Let the final static bleed out. Rock the dash away. Afterhours theory. We out.
Yeah. Island isolation logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Raw architectural weight. Afterhours theory. We out.
Distant cavernous rumble of a 6 train curving sharply on the upper loop. Vibe gotten brickwork, followed by the trial attention magic was a brand feature. Reach the now reach rumble of a 6 train. On the jams, I'm a ditch.
3:18 a.m. standing on the curve. Dust blanketed platform of the abandoned city hall. Subway station sealed deep beneath the frantic streets of lower Manhattan. A subterranean master tree from night into fall. Left in total darkness. Majestic and Stavino vaulted ceilings covered in green and tan tiles. Leaded glass skylights, choker street soot, and rusted brass chandeliers hanging over empty tracks. The heavy smell of ancient iron filings. Damp masonry, still subterranean air and break dust. Lock that muted trumpet loop straight into the recording grid. No synthesized shortcuts, no algorithmic bait, strictly raw underground heritage from the original vault. Listen close. Navigating the curved platform where the arches meet, carving Thomas dialogue. Beneath the city's feet, I segment the trumpet loop until the brass notes bleed. Planting an uncommissioned independent culture seed. The lower frequencies resonate through the tile grout, while the track isolates the system that we rhyme about. The snare cracks sharp like a high voltage third rail spark, slicing directly through the heavy silence of the dark. We don't chase the digital trends or the playlist placement. We just document the marrow from the deepest basement. Just to face the scribe, tracing patterns in the dust layer, exposing the skeletal truth to the honest player. Pretty Vaughn textures echoing down the curved track line. Heavy drum machinery driving through the raw design. We keep the frequency sovereign beneath the park ground. Uncut acetate crackle, preserving the authentic sound. Yeah, the brittle DX7 bell chime hovers on the parallel track. Got an archival thought that the executives were slash pure tactical alignment, indexing the true design, refusing to dilute the message for their corporate line. We slice the minor chord progression till the tape speed wavers, delivering an unpolished manuscript to the true flavor as the vintage drum machine knocks with that uncompressed smoke. The exact type of winter catalog that the mainstream broke. Keep the leather bomber jacket zipped against the tunnel chill, measuring the historical density until the master tape is still. No superficial edits or radio friendly sound design, just the natural wholesome weight of the borderline. And horn textures echoing down the curved track line. Heavy drum machinery driving through the raw design. We keep the frequency sovereign beneath the park ground. Uncut acetate crackle, preserving the authentic sound. Now While the oxide ribbon is approaching the dead leader strip, but the testimony remains locked in an absolute grip. We leave the signature etched deep into the ceramic tile. Long after the superficial charts go out of style, the bass drum strikes heavy like a line switch, throwing cold, a rugged monument to the narratives that can't be sold. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the tunnel ventilation hiss, a cold reminder of the depth that the commercial channels miss. Subterranean energy stays permanent, the focus is great, the sovereign slate dominates the current state. We climb the emergency hatch and vanish in the midnight mist. Yeah, the vault logic. Let the lack of static bleed out. Raw underground heritage. The sovereign slate. Station closed. We out.
Against the cavernous rumble of a 6-train jumping.
The sovereign slate. Station closed. We out.
Underground heritage. We out.
Yeah. The distant echoic rattling of a rustic converted housing high above, mixed with the slow rhythm of the industrial waterfront of South Brooklyn. 50 massive, decaying concrete silos lifting like an ancient fortress into the midnight fog. Rusted elevator housings hanging like dead iron limbs. The heavy smell of salt crust, harbor grease, cold stone, and decades of petrified grain dust. Keep that reedy soprano sax loop locked tight in the track layout. No commercial edits, no radio gloss, strictly raw analog continuity from the concrete monolith. Listen close, passing through the shadow where the elevator stands, leaving raw expressions on the unrecorded lands. I split the saxophone loop to the reedy note split, forging an unpolished framework where the realities fit. The low bodies vibrates through the harbor wall, while the coastal phantoms answer the immediate call. The snare snaps heavy like a rusted crane chain, snapping free, isolating every frequency that they don't want you to see. We don't track the digital charts or the streaming stats, we just document the asphalt where the midnight cats navigate the boundary line of the forgotten coast, leaving an authentic signal from an unlisted host.
Greedy saxophone lines echoing down the empty slip, heavy drum breaks pounding while the harbor waters rip. We keep the audio uncut inside the industrial shell, pure analog friction breaking the commercial spell.
Yeah, the fourth is the organ hovers on the secondary track. Got a catalog of raw thoughts that the editors will pack. Strict coastal observation, seeing how the skyline fades, cutting straight through the illusions of their corporate trades. We slice the minor cadence till the playback head stutters, delivering the code definition straight from the gutters. The vented sample of hits with that uncompressed soot, leaving an indelible stamp where the industry can't foot. Keep the canvas deck jacket zipped against the harbor draft, protecting the integrity of this independent craft until the shell exposed spins down to the center pin. We hold a position true before the morning shifts begin.
Greedy saxophone lines echoing down the empty slip, heavy drum breaks pounding while the harbor waters rip. We keep the audio uncut inside the industrial shell, pure analog friction breaking the commercial spell.
Now the lacquer is scraping on a final needle pass, but the syllable remains sharp like shattered industrial glass. We leave the coordinates written deep in the concrete moss, long after the financial district counters final loss. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy cargo winch stroke, a solid testament to the unfiltered words that we spoke. The arrangement slowly sinks into the morning fog bank hum, a grim reminder of where the actual narratives come from. Waterfront eddy stays permanent, the target is defined. The terminal dock run is the only broadcast left behind. We scale the perimeter gate and vanish in the mist. Yeah. Leon a sharp snare hit, the crackling jazz. Let the static bleed out. Pure analog friction. Yeah. Terminal doctors. Grid isolated. Yeah.
Terminal
Yeah.
The concrete monolith. Greedy saxophone by them the empty slip. Greedy saxophone on the humble waters rip. Greedy saxophone by them the empty slip.
Terminal
Yeah.
Ominous groaning of rusted iron hose grinding against each other in the low turn.
4:17 a.m. standing on a collapsing wooden pier overlooking the Staten Island boat graveyard. With it, Marine scrapyard. In Rossville, right on the edge of the Arthur Kill title strait, the skeletal, rusting rib coaches of dozens of abandoned 20th century merchant ships, tugboats, and historic ferries have submerged in the dark water. Their oxidized iron hulls bleeding orange in the black silt. The heavy smell of low tide mud, old diesel grease, salt crust, and freezing coastal fog keep that cold old Laura sequence looping raw without any digital cleaning. No major label formulas, no algorithmic streaming bait. Strictly uncut, maritime pressure from the graveyard of the harbor. Listen close. Tracing geometric lines where the iron plating splits, isolating frequencies before the power circuit quits. I slice the outer unloop till the mallet strikes the stort, forging a anonymous script inside this coastal port. The low end of Coast Guard bases vibrating through the mud, while the night prowlers disconnect from the consumer flood. The wooden snare drops like a structural support beam, breaking, exposing the fragile illusions that the mainstream is making. We don't buy the digital metrics or the temporary praise. We just document the architecture as the century decays. Just a midnight phantom leaving footprints on a rotten dock, escaping the confinement of the modern cultural clock. Modern cultural clock.
They find the root keys echoing through the rotten hole. Heavy drum sequence hitting while the night grows dull.
We keep the bassline locked beneath the rusted metal frame, pure analog friction, refusing to play the commercial game. The shivering road's accent hovers on a parallel track. Got a dossier of raw pressure that the editors can't track. Strict independent focus, watching how the skyline fades, cutting straight through the illusions of their corporate trades. We segment the minor scale into the playback tape flutters, feeding raw definitions directly to the outcasts and gutters. The vintage sampler punches with that authentic garage smoke, the exact type of winner blueprint that the critics never spoke. Keep the heavy canvas deck jacket zipped against the harbor draft, protecting the integrity of this independent craft until the shellac spool spins down to the center pin. We hold a position true before the morning shift begins.
They found the root keys echoing through the rotten hole. Heavy drum sequence hitting while the night grows dull. We keep the bassline locked beneath the rusted metal frame, pure analog friction, refusing to play the commercial game.
Yeah, the oxide is scraping on the final aluminum flange, but the syllable survives and there's nothing left to change. We leave the mathematics written deep in the scale and rust, long after the empire turns the architecture into dust. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy cargo wind stroke, a permanent monument to the words of the unlisted professor. The arrangement slowly sinks into the morning bird calls, leaving nothing but echoes bouncing off the iron walls. Maritime energy stays permanent, the blueprint is defined. The Arthur Kill matrix is the only broadcast left behind. We scale the chain link barrier and vanish in the mist.
Modern cultural clock.
Graveyard logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. It's an outrageous. You not your kill matrix.
Hold the bassline locked beneath the rusted metal frame. Pure analog friction, refusing to play the commercial game.
Graveyard logic.
They found the root keys echoing through the rotten hole. Heavy drum sequence hitting while the night grows dull.
Beneath the rusted metal frame.
The sharp.
And I love you.
The sharp. Echoing clang of a rusted iron prison cell door, swinging loose on a strap hinge, followed by the dry shadow of a glass bottle against the grand marble staircase. And the fasty low pass filtered jazz lap steel guitar from the darkest metal slide, weeping through a slow dragging minor phrase with a deep and analog spring reverb effect. It is layered with a faint shivering vintage electric organ tone and a heavy sync with double bass line. Without a single second of delay, the 87 BPM drum break drops. The kick hits loose, warm and deeply saturated at the sub-frequencies. The snare snaps with a gritty, unquantized thud over a continuous hiss of aged shellac crackle. A gritty low-tone voice speaks instantly. Yeah.
8:50 a.m. standing dead center in the cavernous decaying main courtroom of the abandoned old Bronx courthouse on 61st Street. A towering Beaux-Arts limestone monument now rotting in total isolation. Massive bronze doors walk by time. Shattered skylights let in the cold night air. Rain down on the ruined jury boxes. Rusted holding cages on the top floor overlooking the tracks. The heavy smell of wet plaster, oxidized iron, decomposing legal transcripts and decaded trap dust. Like that weeping lap steel guitar loop straight on the master track layout. No commercial compromises, no radio friendly hooks. Strictly the unvarnished acoustics of the final summation. Listen close, listen close, listen close.
Weeping slide guitars echoing through the holding cage. Heavy drum configurations turning the final page. We keep the rhythm uncompromised behind the iron bars. Pure analog, wait under the distant northern stars.
Yeah, the faint organ tone hovers on a parallel track. Got a ledger full of pressure that the system couldn't track. Cold calculated logic, watching how the structure splits. Slicing through the fabric before the power station quits. We chop the minor scale till the audio signal breaks, exposing every single angle that the industry fakes. The vintage drum sampler drops that raw and edited punch. The exact type of poetry that corporate sharks want to lunch. Keep the canvas field coat zip tight against the draft, defending the integrity of this underground craft. Until the magnetic ribbon hits the copper spindle base, we maintain the raw execution in this forgotten space.
Guitars echoing through the holding cage. Heavy drum configurations turning the final page. We keep the rhythm uncompromised behind the iron bars. Pure analog, wait under the distant northern stars.
Now the tape is running thin on a final real exchange, but the syntax remains and there's nothing left to change. We leave the philosophy scratched into the judge's bench. Long after the elements consume the plaster and the stench. A kick drum is thumping like a heavy iron vault door shut. A rugged monument slicing through the corporate cut. The arrangement slowly sinks into the early morning hum. A grim manifestation of where the actual rhymes come from. Just as energy stays permanent, the target is defined. The gable paradigm is the only signal left behind. We drop down the fire, escape and dissolve into the grave, to the grave, to the grave.
Weeping slide guitars echoing through the holding cage. Heavy drum configurations turning the final page. We keep the rhythm uncompromised behind the iron bars. Pure analog, wait under the distant northern star. Yeah.
Courthouse logic. Let the shellac hiss beat out. The gavel paradigm. Case dismissed, we out. Courthouse logic. Let the shellac hiss beat out. The gavel paradigm. Case dismissed, we out. We out. We out. We out. We out. We out. Oh my no.
The hollow metallic screech of a rusted iron window frame swinging loose in the wind, followed by the crunch of shattered porcelain tiles and dry pine needles under a heavy boot of dusty. Low-pass filtered jazz hammering beef, the organ loop emerges from the dark. It's drawn bars set to a smoky driving minor chord phrase that warps with a slow grinding Leslie speaker rotation. It is layered with a faint shivering and analog chisine sine wave drone and a thick syncopated double bass line that hits on the offbeat without a single second of delay. The 89 BPM drum break drops. The kick hits loose, warm and sub-heavy. The snare snaps with a dry, unquantized paper thin thud over a continuous layer of thick lack of surface noise. A gritty low-tone voice speaks instantly. Yeah.
3:12 a.m. deep inside the sprawling abandoned brick ruins of the Seaview Hospital Sanatorium. Isolated in the dense dark woods of the Staten Island Greenbelt, the decaying 1913 tuberculosis colony where the city sentenced forgotten patients. Collapsed sun porches choked with invasive wild weeds. Rusted wrought iron gurney standing in empty hydrotherapy halls. The heavy smell of damp pine bark, peeling lead paint. Old plaster dust and cold forest fog. Lock that grinding ham and organ seeping straight onto the master tape deck layout. No commercial methods, no industry compromise, strictly raw clinical friction from the forgotten ridges of the outer borough. Listen close, listen close, listen close.
Stepping through the sanatorium corridors where the plaster peels, documenting how the actual underground architect feels. I segment the organ loop until the Leslie road is tall, leaving permanent black ink on this mosaic told wall. The lower keys of bassline is vibrating through the slate, while the narrative uncovers what the metrics try to hate. The snare drops hard like a heavy oak entrance door slamming, slicing straight through the commercial frequencies that jamming. We don't fill out the applications or ask for their permission. We just map the dark geography and launch the execution. Just a nocturnal phantom tracking lines in the damn dark, leaving an unlisted signature just inside the historic park. Grinding organ chords drifting down the rotting ward. Heavy drum pattern striking like a blunt iron sword. We keep the dialogue authentic with the shadows interlocked. Pure tape saturation ticking like a midnight clock. Grinding organ chords drifting down the rotting ward. Heavy drum pattern striking like a blunt iron sword. We keep the dialogue authentic with the shadows interlocked. Pure tape saturation ticking like a midnight clock. Yeah, the shivering syndrome hovers on a parallel stem. Got a folder full of calculus that I won't leak to them. Strict independent focus tracking how to structure us, refusing to dilute the thesis for their corporate trust. We chop the minor interval until the playback signal weaves, feeding raw definition straight to the dwellers under the eaves. The vintage drum machine thumps with that uncompressed slip, leaving the indelible stamp where the mainstream can't foot. Keep the heavy utility jacket button to the collarbone, watching how the industry turns to vibrant in stone until the oxide strip runs completely off the brass real wheel. We preserve the raw execution on this independent reel. Grinding organ chords drifting down the rotting ward. Heavy drum pattern striking like a blunt iron sword. We keep the dialogue authentic where the shadows interlock. Pure tape saturation ticking like a midnight clock. Grinding organ chords drifting down the rotting ward. Heavy drum pattern striking like a blunt iron sword. We keep the dialogue authentic where the shadows interlock. Pure tape saturation ticking like a midnight clock. Now the magnetic ribbon is scraping on the final aluminum guide, but the independent manuscript is safely locked inside. We leave the equations engraved deep in the brickwork mold. Long after the superficial playlist numbers grow cold, the kick drum is thumping like an old boiler room prank. A rugged monument recorded on a blank memory bank. The mix slowly dissolves into the morning valley mist, the cold testament to the depth that the charts never list. Sanatorium energy stays permanent, the focus is pure. The isolation ledger is the only broadcast to endure. We step out through the broken terrace and vanish in the trees. Yeah. Sanatorium logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. The isolation legend. Greenbelt frequency. We out. Sharp mechanical snap of a tape deck button popping up, followed by pure silence.
The dry echoing stare.
The fly low for Dusty. The fly low for Dusty, low pass filtered. The fly low for Dusty.
Low pass filter jazz trombone loop emerges from the dark, blowing the smoky, dragging minor phrase with a heavy cup mute effect. It is layered with the faint, chilling subtle chime and the thick walking Kamass line. Without a single second of delay, the 80 pp brim break drops. The kick hits loose, warm, and deeply saturated. The snare snaps with the gritty, unquantized thud over a continuous hiss of age, lacquer, acetate, crackle. A gritty, low tone voice speaks instantly. 2:54 a.m. Standing dead center on the crumbling, collapse stage of the abandoned arcade. Y'all keep staring, Flushing, Queens. A once majestic 19th horny Vaudeville palace, now rotting in total isolation. The mass of plaster proscenium arch peeling away above. Shredded Spanish velvet curtains hanging like decaying rags in the gloom. Rusted film projector housings looking down from the shattered balcony. The heavy smell of dry rot, old stage oil, damn velvet, and decade. Your trapped theater dust. Keep that muted trombone phrase looping raw without any digital cleaning. No artificial stadium glare, no plastic pop choreography.
Strictly the unvarnished acoustics of the final curtain call. Listen close.
Stepping past the orchestra pit where the floorboards give, documenting how the actual underground poets live. I slice the drum loop until the brass notes fray, painting a stark portrait of the metropolitan decay. The low pause vibrates through the orchestra stalls, while the echoes of dead applause bounce off the walls. The wooden snare drops like a heavy iron fire curtain line, slicing right through the illusions of their corporate design. We don't audition for the managers or wait for a cue. We just dissect the script and expose what is true. Just an uncredited author writing lines in the debris, setting the dial to a frequency they never will see.
Feel the brass notes drifting through the balcony chair. Heavy drum arrangement dropping cold and severe. We keep the dialogue authentic while the scenery breaks. Raw acetate friction, ignoring what the industry fakes.
Yeah, the celestial chime lingers on a parallel stem. Got a head full of leverage that I won't share with them. Strict observation from the high projection booth floor, watching how the media vultures police the stage door. We chop the minor walls until the playback head jumps, feeding raw voltage to the dwellers of the dumps. The vintage sample of hits with that uncompressed suit, leaving an indelible mark where the corporate can't foot. Keep the heavy wool coat buttoned up to the chin, watching where the theater ends and the realities begin, until the magnetic ribbon hits the copper tape guide. We maintain a position that they can't buy inside.
Muted brass notes drifting through the balcony tier. Heavy drum arrangement dropping cold and severe. We keep the dialogue authentic while the scenery breaks. Raw acetate friction, ignoring what the industry fakes.
Now the oxide is scraping on the last brass wheel, but the dialogue survives on its independent reel. We leave the signature scratched into the proscenium stone, long after the spotlight leaves the stage completely alone. The kick drum is thumping like a backstage generator. Crank a rugged testament recorded on a blank memory bank. The mix slowly dissolves into the ventilation shaft breeze, leaving nothing but the ghost moving through the marquee keys. Vaudeville energy stays permanent. The syntax is clear, the marquee archive is the only broadcast you hear. We step through the fire exit and we vanish in the rain.
Trial over musty old blast over. Try to fly over musty. You the blast over. What's the back and tip? Temperature on the range, but drop a gold as a film.
Yeah, larger. Let the vinyl static bleed out. The marquee archive. No encore. We out. We out. We out.
Metallic claim of a rusted signal box store. The hollow metallic clanging of a rusted signal box door. One hollow metallic clanging of a rusted signal box door. Road isolated. Yeah. 3:51 a.m. standing high on the rusted, elevated steel trestle of the abandoned line. Rockaway Beach branch line, hidden deep within the overgrown woods of Ozone Park, Queens. Decaying iron railway bridges swallowed completely by wild trees. Dead track lines leading into the dark void. The heavy smell of old creosote, rusted rail spikes, wet pine needles, and cold midnight air keep the wheezing accordion phrase locked tight into the track layout. No commercial compromises, no radio-friendly formula, strictly raw transit friction from the forgotten grid of the borough. Listen close. Listen close. Listen close. Yeah. Walking the elevated ridge where the iron rail cracks, leaving no digital footprints on these forgotten tracks. I chop the accordion loop to the internal bellows bleed, sewing in the monetized industrial counterculture seed. The sub bass hits low through the concrete support column, delivering the raw manuscript, heavy and solemn. The snare snaps like a rusty signal arm, dropping cold, preserving the hidden New York story that was never sold. We bypass the mainstream channels and the playlist hype. We just engrave the actual logic in its purest type. Just a midnight trespasser cutting through the thick brush, keeping the focus sharp without a single frantic rush. The iron oxide legend, wheezing accordion notes drifting down the railway line. Thick drum configurations hitting the raw design. We keep the frequency isolated above the street level grid. Pure analog weight revealing what the canopy hid. What
the canopy head.
Yeah.
What the canopy head.
Yeah, the shivering sense on hovers on the parallel track bank, extracting unfiltered voltage from an old industrial tank. Strict analytical metrics, watching the transit line warp, slicing straight through the illusions of the commercial court. We segment the minor scale until the playback tape flutters, feeding raw definitions directly to the outcasts and gutters. The vintage sample punches with that authentic garage smoke, the exact type of winner blueprint that the critics never spoke. Keep the heavy canvas coat and zip tight for the night air, documenting the architecture that the corporate wouldn't dare. Till the oxide strip runs off the aluminum spindle wheel, we maintain a raw execution on this independent reel.
The iron oxide legend, reason accordion notes drifting down the railway line. Thick drum configurations hitting the raw design. We keep the frequency isolated above the street level grid. Pure analog weight revealing what the canopy hid. What the canopy hid. What the canopy hid.
Now the magnetic ribbon is scraping on a final guidepost, but the syllable survives like an unlisted transit ghost. We leave a signature scratched into the rusted signal box frame long after the digital network forgets the actual name. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy iron top plate strike, a rugged monument rising over the highway, and the pipe the arrangement slowly sinks into the early morning bird chorus, leaving nothing but the echoes moving through the forest. Elevated energy stays permanent, the syntax is clear, the signal disruption is the only broadcast you hear. We drop down a rusted iron ladder and vanish in the mist.
Oxide legend. I'm excited cleaning up a press to see before.
The thick drum configurations hitting the raw design.
We out.
Yeah.
Oxide legend.
Railway logic. The thick drum configurations hitting the raw design. Well isolated.
We out. We out.
Yeah. Railway logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. The signal disruption. Route isolated. We out.
The iron oxide legend.